Hey everyone, still can't voice. Welcome to the Bible Belt Bros podcast.
Welcome back, guys. Good job, Dusty.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so Dusty can't talk today, so I guess I'm going to be talking, it looks like. But I don't really know what to talk about.
All right, today on the
there we
podcast, we are going to be talking about, what were we talking about? Oh, we wanted to, it was kind of bouncing off of the last episode we just talked about where
Yes.
I was talking about doing the same study instead of doing
Yes.
different Bible studies. And so we're going to go deep dive into that a little bit more because Andrew apparently is very opinionated about what we were talking about. So we decided, hey,
Why not talk about it?
all right, so to kick this off, we've already kind of had the discussion of where our church has been doing a 40-day Bible reading plan, daily reading plan as a church through the book of Matthew and the book of Romans. And the whole concept is like we're all going through this together. It's building our better principles in our lives, better practices, better disciplines as a church. You already have a study that you're doing. My wife's already had a study that she's been doing. And you have like gamified studies, so where you can't miss. And
Right.
my wife can't miss. But but it can be gamified that way. But she's not as worried about the streak stuff as she is worried about just not being the one that's being behind.
Right.
You know, everybody else can be 7.
Now, let me
10 days
clarify that.
behind.
I didn't realize I was on the streak until it's only been like a month. And then I was like, okay, I can't miss because I have to hit a record type thing. So
Yeah.
clarify that.
But-
But it hasn't been 8 years of me. Oh, I got to
Gamified.
keep this. Yeah.
Yeah. But either way, that gamifying stuff works.
It does, yeah.
It helps you like any
Yeah,
kind of.
that's why we challenge ourselves to do things. You're making a game out of it.
So you've had that debate of, do I stop what I've been doing for the last 8 years and do this thing in submission to my pastor, or do I do both?
Right.
Or do I just not do the church thing because the whole part of the, not the whole point, but part of the point is the fact that you already have the discipline practice.
Because that is how it was presented, was to create that discipline.
Yeah. But in the process, kind of had some, things that have popped up where this could be bigger than what maybe we want it to be, or maybe there's some other things other valuable
Other
things that we're
benefits.
getting out of this that we didn't actually intend to. And so that's what
Right.
we're going to talk about today. Like,
Yeah, because you hit on that last week, and those are things that I hadn't thought of.
right.
I don't know if you saw my gesture when I knew what you were about to say, and I just kind of hung my head, and I was like, don't say it, and then you said it, and
He
then
was
I
a
was like,
sad
"Oh,
little puppy
shoot."
dog. He was, because he was like, oh no.
And then was the birth of this podcast.
Just because we know that maybe you don't want to listen to the other podcasts and you're just here to listen to this one, pretty much was saying that the church camp, one of the things that we're doing is everybody's having the same quiet time every day. And that translates into having conversations throughout the day that could incorporate what they've been learning about God as a group. And then translating to how we can do this as adults in our daily lives is our church right now is all reading through the same book. If you work with Jeff over in accounting, well, guess what? Jeff's also been reading the same chapter of Matthew as you, and so you can be like, hey, what'd you learn about God today? And it makes it less kind of weird.
Yes.
I don't know. There's some weird thing of like getting spiritual with people. It gets kind of weird sometimes. But if you're all kind of doing something together, it doesn't feel as awkward to bring up those conversations, I guess is the
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely, yeah, because you always have something in common. You have something to talk about, so it's not weird.
In
at
the
that
early
point.
church in Acts, they talk about how they broke bread together every day. Did it say that they listened or heard the word or read the word? Probably not. They were still writing the word at the time.
Well, no, because they still had the Old Testament. They still had
Yeah.
the
Okay.
prophecies.
This
and
was
all that.
brought up twice in the last week with me, and it's a good point. The point that was being made was we have the ability to see what happens at the end of the story.
Right, yeah.
So as we're reading through Matthew, we have the ability to know what happens. Jesus dies, comes back, all that. But they don't. They don't know what's going on.
Right.
And it just every time they bring that up, it just reminds me of the movie Spaceballs, where there's a scene where they lose the people. They're like, well, we don't know where they went. And they're like, well, let's watch the movie and see where they went. And they're like, well, we're in the movie, but it's not been released yet. And so then they rewind the movie and it's basically re-showing the whole entire movie as they're fast forwarding to their point. Then they get to the point where they actually are and they look back at the camera and it's the same time that they're in sync, and so then they fast forward a little bit more, and they're like, oh, they're on this island, let's go get them, and so that's what it reminded me every time I've been hearing this point being made is like Acts Church right now, as they're writing it in Matthew, as we're reading in Matthew even, that they're currently in all the stuff. They don't get to see the whole story like we do. So try to put your mind, like when we're constantly saying, man, these people are stupid. These disciples, they never trust God. They're
right.
constantly stupid.
Right.
But they don't see the picture. Like they're in the moment, and so
kind of devil's advocate moment here. They should, because they had the prophecies. They had Jesus with them telling them what was going to happen. They just weren't listening. They didn't have faith to believe it. So they should have. Now, probably the same way with us. People are telling us things that are going to happen and we don't believe them. And then when things come true, we're like, oh, like, shoot. The Simpsons. You want to know what's going to happen next week? Watch The Simpsons. For some reason, they are always on point.
Yeah.
Is he a time traveler? We don't know.
We don't know.
I think he is.
Maybe he just already has the movie of life.
Right. Maybe it's Spaceballs. Maybe he is so spiritually connected to God that he's actually listening to God, and so he knows what's going to happen.
Exactly.
We don't know.
We don't know.
But yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about today.
So the point I was bringing up on why it was a positive thing, we'll start there, and then you can say what maybe your thought.
Yeah, and let me also caveat this. I'm not trying to talk anybody out of this. Matter of fact, I would probably take Dusty's side on this. These are just my feelings.
But Andrew likes to argue, so here we go.
Argue. It's just I have my own opinion.
Andrew likes to have an opinion that's
about everything,
opposite of whoever else he's talking to, regardless of who.
No, I don't.
Shut up. You just said, oh, God. It's starting. All right. So the point I was kind of trying to make was like how, when we're doing this together as a church, that we are kind of, it's spurring up some more conversations maybe about God and in ourselves, and then holding each other accountable of doing it. And so all of these things are good. And I just was like, man, what if the entire church, like what if our whole city, every church started doing the same thing, reading through the book of the Bible or chapter a day. And then when you're with whoever at a non-denom church and they've read the same thing, you can have the same conversation. If they read it, this person over here goes to the Baptist church, you can have the same conversation. Like you can just maybe as we bring God more into our daily lives, like that's one way that we could synchronize the church a bit, because the church is very separate. And inside of the church, we're all doing our own side studies.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so like what is something that we could do? Like that's what I was asking. Like what is something that we could do that would help?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And churches are separated because, even within our own church, we're all doing our own studies. And so now you branch it out to another denomination, and they're doing their own studies in the way that their denomination preaches it and believes it. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, you have that massive separation. So, yes, you are right there. And it would be cool if everybody was doing the same study and we could come together and talk. Would I disagree, or the reason I don't like it is everybody's at a different spiritual level. And so doing the same study will hinder some and hurt others. So either way, it's going to hurt. I mean, whether it's hindering or hurting, because some people aren't at that spiritual level yet, so they don't know how to do that study or do that. And the way our church is doing it is very elementary. So then you have the Christians who are a little deeper, and they're being brought down to a different level. Essentially, I say brought down. It's a more of a shallow, and yes, you can interpret take your interpretation to the study and go deeper in it. But people who have exhausted Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and Romans, and done those studies 1,000 times, to me, I don't want to go back and do this again right now. In a year or in a few months, I might want to do, like right now, I'm doing my 4th consecutive study of James right now, because James right now is so intriguing to me.
That's just like a opposite of what you said. You want to keep moving on, but you're in the same right. study, same book, because that's what you're like. The kickback of Matthew is like everybody's like, I've read Matthew already.
I've
already read it. And so you're saying, I've read James 1,000 times, but it keeps speaking to me in a different spiritual level every time. I just keep learning. It's like the word is living and active in my life right now, like as I read through the same book multiple times.
Right. I'm in a deep dive. So yes, I've read it, but I've already done that with Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. I don't necessarily want to go back to it right now. But that's not even why I don't like the corporate thing. Yeah. That's just where I'm at right now, kind of what's flowing. The whole reason I don't like the corporate thing, the whole church doing the same thing is, to me, it's so ingenuine. You're being told what to do. You're not being led by the Spirit. You're not listening to God. It's not God telling you to do this. It's a pastor on staff that's telling you to do this. And God, and I know that this is really going to peeve off the pastors because they are your spiritual shepherd and they hear from God for you, or supposedly, they're hearing from God to lead you in a way. But when I'm hearing from God and it's not in line with what you're telling me God is telling you to tell me, it creates a not a controversy, and not a strife. I don't know what but to me it's butting heads. It's because it's not necessarily what God is telling me to do in my study, but now I have a pastor telling me, oh, this is what God's telling me to tell you guys. So it's what they're shepherding. It's the way they present it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me.
Okay, go ahead.
You're throwing a lot of things out there, and we got to circle back.
Okay.
This movement right now is a circle. Okay, call back. First off, I'll just start with your first point. What was your first point?
Well, that was just kind of where I'm at the moment.
Okay. Well, so for the pastor thing, I've been where you're at, right? There is a when we go all the way back to the beginnings of this podcast that.
With old Frankie?
With old Frank Viola. We go back to the beginning of the podcast. That was part of it, right? Jesus, right, at the time, as Christians, or I guess as Jews or Israelites or whatever, we would get what the Lord wanted from Moses. We'd get what the Lord was trying to tell us through a person. And so when the Holy Spirit came down, yes, that allows us to have direct access. And yes, a lot of times what we have seen, just like the Israelites did when they kept going back to building idols and building all these things, is that we rely too much on the pastor to tell us what God is doing when we have the Holy Spirit in us. If you are a Christian, if you are a born again Christian, you have the Holy Spirit in you to guide you. And ultimately, we rely too much on pastors to tell us what God is saying. We rely too much on their Sunday morning sermons to tell us what God is saying. And I think pastors also can feel like that is their job, is to tell them what God is saying and not help pastor and guide them into into their spiritual, to where they need to be. Now, I will say that there is you're basically saying I can only do one study a day.
I didn't say I'm not doing the study.
Go
ahead.
Let me talk.
No, let's go.
I can, because for instance, a pastor has an idea, because I had the same thing, I guess, when we have our fasting.
Yes.
God's calling us to fast. Well, he's also calling every pastor apparently to fast on July 1st.
January 1st.
January 1st.
Right. When every pastor in America.
When basically everybody does it, and if every pastor in America is calling, then I would be a little bit more in tune that maybe God is in the moment.
You're right.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's like, man, it seems like every year God's telling our pastor that to call us to a fast. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know if that's God anymore, if now we're just doing the fad.
It's a ritual now.
We already know that people are trying to,
It's an idol.
Well, it's more of a fad, I think.
Yeah, it is.
Is like everybody's trying to get better health-wise. What's the first thing you can do to get better healthy? It's like fast and cut out all the toxins. Like, it's a diet thing. That's a lot of times what I would do the fast for on January. So like, okay, well,
it's a good kickstart to your diet.
Yeah,
right.
And we're like, it's a spiritual fast, those kind of things. So I've been there and I've had those thoughts.
I'm still at that same spot.
But what I have changed my mind to do is, I will submit to this guy's leadership. God has put him in a place to be my shepherd. And I am also a sheep that likes to run around and try something differently than what, is standard. I don't like the color inside the lines. I can do the fast like I did last time. Even if I personally don't feel like this is a God-called fast, I can still participate in the fast. It does not hurt me at all to do an extra fast a year. You know what I mean?
All right, I agree.
This is not going to be a spiritual...
You're not going
to
die on that
hill. It might not be for the right reasons, but I can still submit to that, and I can still grow in that moment, and I can still fast for something and all of those things. And if anything, it's built, and I've done a spiritual discipline, and I've submitted to a leadership, right? But I think that there's times where we think that the only way we can hear from God is through the pastor. And I think that is your point. And then the pastors, sometimes they think that their opinion, which sometimes is also their preference, and they
100%.
Their preference on what they need to do is what is taken as the Lord.
One, I got a couple things. This came up. I got a new podcast idea out of what you said.
I don't like when you have ideas.
Well, and
Andrew, you're going to leave my house at some point today. Okay?
I'm going to say this topic, and maybe we do it, maybe we don't. But you are called, like I was called to. Well, not call. I am at our church because I feel Rusty is my spiritual leader. I have been. I will say called to support him. So what happens when you get a new pastor? Does your calling automatically transition to the new pastor that your church picked, or do you need to pray about it? And maybe it's time for you to exit stage left.
I think there's sometimes you need to pray about it, because you got to make sure that you're going to be able to submit to to that leadership. Because
I will say I did pray about it. So
okay.
And I do feel led to staying at Church of Matters and supporting our new pastor.
Because I do think that if you know you're just going to constantly butt heads with the guy, you're probably better off cutting ties and going down the street, especially in the Bible Belt, and go to somebody that you will, because ideally God is speaking to that pastor just as much as he's speaking to this current pastor.
So I wholeheartedly agree with that. Yes, we should submit authority to the pastor and follow them, which I feel, yes.
Perfect. I'm right. You're wrong. Okay. I'm joking. And another thing that you brought up that just made me think of it, you talked about different levels of spiritualness of where they are. So like what we're doing isn't necessarily a study per se. We're just reading it and seeing what jumps off the page for you.
Right. Yeah. Because
I get that that's an elementary study, but maybe think of it this way, Andrew. There are different levels to it, right?
Right.
So maybe this is an opportunity for discipleship making, for somebody who is the higher level to read the same thing that person's reading, somebody at the lower level seeing a point, and then having a conversation with somebody that is much more seasoned Christian, and be able to have some discipleship opportunities where they're able to teach. Yeah, for that person who's like at the higher tier, I don't know how else to say it. Right. But the higher tier
I don't know how to say it either.
Christian guy or gal is that they also need to be challenged and need to be changed, but those people are also more likely to take it deeper naturally anyway and understand that they don't need to just point out the surface level things, that they need to go a little bit further in the heart. And then those people are also probably doing additional actual studies. We're just talking about a 10-minute reading. You know what I mean?
Like that. It's not even 10 minutes. Yeah.
So I would think a seasonal person that's going to be more on that level, more tier 3 subscriber of Christianity is going.
Do you really have to relate this to Twitch?
A tier 3 subscriber would be somebody who's also doing the extra mile. And they probably have more stuff that they're studying, and not just like the 10 minutes is just like an easy, quick thing to help them help others,
Yeah. And I hate, like, I don't know how to word it any different or better, because it seems like I'm saying I'm up here on this super high spiritual level, which I am by far, I am not there at all. I still consider myself an elementary learner when it comes to this, because I don't do the journaling or the notebooking. What did I learn? I don't do that. More what I do is when I read something, I would get online and I research that, and I want to know why. And that's the researcher in me. That was my college degree, was in research. It's what it taught me to do. And so I want to know, kind of like Johnny, our Pastor Johnny, he is very much into the research and the knowing of why and how type thing. And that's what I want to know. I can't disagree with anything you're saying, because I do agree. But I just don't like the ingenuineness, the it's not coming from.
It does feel, especially as a tier 3 Christian, Andrew, that sorry, I'm gonna keep that rolling. You would think,
listen, I'm a Prime subscriber. I'm not tier 3,
and I think that's where we you're using the free free tier. I think there is a like a disconnect sometimes, especially the longer if you've been doing church like as long as we have. You see a lot of behind the scenes, right? We've
yes.
seen, and so I think that is where a lot of this rooted thought process comes from. Is we've seen pastors,
Yes.
we've seen youth pastors, we've been behind the scenes with a lot of these guys, and we can see like they have the best hearts, but you got to think of like a lot of the times it's look at all the different denominations. I always bring that up, but look at all the different denominations based off preference instead of, truth
Yes,
or whatever.
100%, absolutely.
And so we just see all of this, that their pastors are human too.
Yes.
And their personal preferences, like when called to a fast, for instance, or called to, what always gets me is when this is a mandatory thing that you have to be at this date. Well, guess whose schedule is open on that date?
Right, the pastors.
The pastors.
Yes.
Guess whose schedule is not, that just found out about it 2 weeks ago and has
Mine.
already bought tickets to something
Yes.
or whatever? It's us.
Yes.
And so, but no, God, we have to submit to your leadership, right? God's
No.
called you to set this date for this thing or this revival or whatever. And now we are, if we don't do it, we are not bought in. And if we do it, like we're, you know what I mean? Like
I
it's
need
just,
a caveat on that.
Okay.
Because our church plans everything out a year in advance.
Not that we know about it.
Yeah, we don't. You're right. We don't know about it. But it allows our pastors to schedule around that, but then they don't tell us till, 2 weeks or a week before.
Yeah.
And so we can't schedule around that stuff. But again, we schedule stuff a year in advance. 40 days wasn't just, I learned this last week. God's calling me. No, this is scheduled. This isn't
I've always not understood why churches, our church especially, we gatekeep some things like that.
Yes.
Like even just like what songs we're doing on Sunday or
Yeah.
who's preaching on Sunday.
That
Like,
annoys me.
That I do get to see
I
that
do
they don't
too.
update
I do
planning
too.
center a lot of times, so it always says the same person, but it's
Yeah.
like, I know it's not. So,
Yes. Usually we know by who is dressed up or who walks in the door. Because some of our pastors don't come unless they're preaching. I'm not even going to caveat that as to why.
God, this is
Go ahead.
We're losing all momentum of listeners that we've gained. No, I'm just saying more of crap. You just totally derailed
Do I need to
me.
give the reasons for that? Do I need to caveat that?
No, what I'm just saying is like that there's a lot of times there's gatekeeping going on for whatever purpose. I've understood some of it, like our church would lock the doors, not like part of the, like playing the songs and rehearsing. We couldn't rehearse while people, this has been years, but like couldn't rehearse while people were able to hear what songs we're doing, because
Yeah.
then all of a sudden that they wouldn't know. You can't put out a playlist and say, hey, here are the songs this Sunday, learn them, like here's a new song we're doing. Like,
Oh,
why do we
wow.
gatekeep those things and then make it, I get that there's like an emotional thing that maybe if it hits at the right moment and if you're pre-doing that, but like I knew that the 40-day thing was coming because I was in a leadership training to know that the church was going through that, and the plan was that so I knew that was coming up. So I told Shay, I was like, hey, just so you know, you're in, because what they do is they'll announce it and it's starting next week, starting tomorrow, or whatever it was. I think it was starting tomorrow, like just how
It
the
was.
fast
It was
also
quick.
goes, that we're going to do this thing.
But the sermon was, I just did this, or I just finished this.
Right. Yeah.
But
But-
it was planned a year in advance.
was-
So did you really just finish it?
now
So
I'm
then
not
you
going to
get-
say it's a full year in advance.
Then you
I'm
get
not gonna
those
throw-
doubts in your mind. And again, this is me knowing the inside workings of the church and seeing, okay, I know where the schedule board is. I could go look at it. I don't, but I could. So yes,
You sneak in with like a fake mustache and snap a picture of the calendar.
anyways, so that's where, but then those doubts and thoughts
Yeah.
creep in my mind. I'm like, really, was this? Because I know we planned stuff way in advance.
Yeah, when I was youth pastor, it was every semester. I wasn't a full year, but like, and it wasn't even like fully planned. It was like, especially in youth ministry, here are like the 10 topics that we need to cover every year. And you're really like in youth ministry, you're really putting people through like a 4-year
Yes,
thing.
cycle.
And then like those people are out and you have the next ones coming in. So you can
Yeah,
kind
so
of,
youth pastors only have to plan for 4 years.
yeah, pastors
for
have
their
to plan
whole-
for a lifetime.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's why youth pastors don't get paid as much.
Well, ideally, it's kind of like scheduling posting on social media. I've always told people, it's like, dude, like take what you did 2 years ago and then I'll just start
And
posting
recycle
that
it.
again. Like nobody's going to know, especially if you're a plumbing company. Nobody
Yeah.
read that to begin with.
Right.
You know, nobody cares about your plumbing service. Like they get it.
Right.
All right. I'll call you if I need you.
Yeah, you're a plumber. I get you. I know what you
But
do.
you have to be like 3 days a week or 3 times a week posting to be active and be in the algorithm. And it's like, okay, I get it. You fix a toilet. You know, okay, I'll call you. Don't worry. You're on my fridge. Whatever.
So let's pull it back and get away from the plumber. Anyways, that's kind of where I'm at with it.
So let's circle back. Let's movement cycle this back into where we were. That the whole point of what we were trying to talk about was, do you think there's value in doing the same study together as a church, and then like broadening that out to let's start here, right? Family, friends, church. I'm spreading out my circle of friends.
Yeah, people can't see you.
Where do you think that it would be? Churches, city, state,
Nation,
5-state area? You know,
tri-state area.
I'm sorry. Office clips are popping in my head right now. But where do you think it starts to lose the luster or lose? So I think starting with your family, like that would be a great thing to do as a family, and then friends. I'm looking at you for an answer. You're just nodding. Friends are, you know, you
I'm
have
not
the group.
quite sure where you're going with this, so I'm still processing.
You're saying like how like there's spiritual differences of people
Right.
and stuff like that. And I agree with you. So like, is the whole church doing the same thing? Is that where it starts to get a little bit more muddy?
Oh, so you're asking where it gets muddy.
Where it gets
Okay.
muddy for you.
No, to me, it's just them putting out that everyone needs to do the exact same
Okay,
thing.
it's for you. It's a submission to
Right.
what they want to do
right.
compared to what you feel like God's calling you to do something
Right.
different or
Yeah. Yes, because it goes back to that whole I have a great relationship with God, and I hear and I follow what He tells me, and I know not everyone does because again, there's spiritual levels, and are you in tune? I mean, really, if you're not in tune from God, you're probably not hearing from God. You may be reading and doing things, and but you're still not in tune with God. You're still not hearing from Him, and maybe you're just not listening. I don't know. That's kind of where it comes. And if God's not telling me to do it, I have a hard time. I have a hard time believing that God is telling someone else to tell me what to do.
Yeah, and I think that's where that's where this podcast started. We all have the Holy Spirit. So why is there so much unsynergy energy?
Why is there a lack of synergy?
Right. Like if we are all following the same Holy Spirit, we should all be on the same tune. And some of it may be like you're saying, like there's some people like that can hear from God clearer than other people because they are reading their Bible daily. They are doing those disciplines. They are seeking the Lord first. And then there's people like maybe me, I'll just throw me under the bus, I guess, that aren't on that same level currently. And so like then where I probably can't hear things, like just because the Lord might be speaking, for instance, me, but I'm not hearing it, but submitting to the pastor who's hearing the same thing the Lord's telling me, I'm just, you know what I mean? Is that making any sense?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because yes, there are times when, pastor preaches a message, or maybe even I go have coffee with a pastor and they say something. And I'm like, God's telling me the exact same thing. So there are those times. And so when I hear those times and I get that confirmation, I'm like, all right, yes, 100%, this is God. But then we do these corporate things, whether it be this 40-day reading plan or the fast that we do on January 1st. And I have a big issue with that because, again, every year, January 1st, God's telling us to do the exact same thing, and then you brought it up, it always fits the pastor's schedule.
Oh, God.
I'm like, yeah. So there's those thoughts. I'm still human. I'm still going to have those thoughts and those doubts.
Right.
And I know that it could be Satan trying to twist those things in my head.
But here's where I've decided to go to, because probably like 3 years ago, I was really having those same feelings.
Yep, I remember.
I'm just like Nike and I do it. I'm just going to do it. And like, if I don't agree with it, it's 40 days. It's a month.
Right. Month and 10 days.
In 10 days. Yeah. I'm, dialing it down a little bit, making it even less. But you know what I mean? So the church isn't saying we're doing this every day now. Here we go. ready for the move. No, we're like, try it out and just try it out.
I mean,
you tried it out, and it wasn't like hitting it.
I mean, I'm still,
as the kid said at camp, it didn't hit
right.
like you thought it was.
And I'm still doing it. Just because I have a problem with it doesn't mean I'm not going to do it. But I still am going to voice my concerns and issues and frustrations.
And I think all of that goes back to the church hurt episode where it's not a Jesus problem. It's not a God problem. It's a people problem.
Yeah, it's a me problem.
And a you problem. But it's more of like, there's some pastors that probably do not listen to the Lord, and they do just do things to do it, and it's trendy, and it makes them look like that they are closer to the Lord. If you think about it that way, like the Bible talks about how many people are preaching my name and they don't even know me, but they know the right things to do, to look the part, to be the part, and probably even feel the part, but they don't know Christ himself. They're not following the Spirit. Right. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So I agree with that, but it's a lot of times it's just coming back to a people problem. It sounds like, Andrew, as your therapist in this episode, it sounds like it's a people problem. It's a submission problem. And then, we, our church especially, we have multiple people in that leadership role that there's probably some people who respect more than others. And so also 100%. Probably depends on who you hear it from.
No, because even the person I respect the most, when they say it, I'm not on board. Typically,
fine.
So it's not a person. It's not the messenger.
It's a people person. People.
It's really a me problem. Issue or issue is not even the right word. I don't know. It's a me.
It's a mishu. Mishu. It's a mishu.
So it is a me problem. Well, yeah.
But if you're like Nike and you just do it because sometimes you're wrong.
A lot of times I'm wrong.
I was trying to give you credit, Andrew. You can be right sometimes. I'm sure of it. But yeah, just doing it and, learn from it. I mean, God's not going to just not speak to you because you followed the wrong person's advice when he was trying to tell you to do something else. You usually just do both.
Man, sometimes you have some good one-liners.
I do. Those sometimes. That's from years of experience and knowledge and...
That's your tier 3 Christian level.
Yeah. You can subscribe to the tier 3 knowledge at.
I'm still just gonna use my Prime sub.
Yeah, just get the free stuff,
free
the
one.
Free drops. Yeah. Anyway, is that all you got? Is that? I mean, there's no
all
like.
I got. This is pretty long already.
I just meant like, did you get it out? We.
I mean, I never get it out, but good enough.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, thanks for listening and subscribing. Hey, if you have a problem with your pastor, and that's kind of what this is, no, that's not what this was about. But I mean, you know what I mean? If you have a problem with like, sometimes you feel these things and like, you feel like you're more being told what to do than following the Spirit, and you're kind of in that confusion area, just one, pray about it. Absolutely. That usually fixes everything. Two, sometimes you just do it, even if you don't feel like doing it. And who knows? God might move amazingly. He also might not. But either way, you've done your part. You submitted to the leadership that God's put ahead of you, in front of you. And then guess what? You can also do more than one study if you want to. So thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Take it easy.